How did the League of Nations react initially to the Italian invasion of Abyssinia? As we know, the British and the French dominated the League of Nations. But during the Abyssinian crisis, the British and the French were in a very difficult situation. This is primarily because they were more worried about Hitler than they were about Mussolini. One thing that they definitely wanted to avoid was Hitler and Mussolini becoming allies. They didn't want that. So during the Abyssinian crisis, Britain and France decided that they wanted to keep Mussolini happy. That way Mussolini might be an ally of France and Britain than he would of Hitler. However, it was difficult for the British because the British public had shown that they would support military action over Abyssinia. They wanted the British government to take action at what they saw was Italy, and Mussolini in particular, behaving like a bully to poor little innocent Abyssinia. So the British had to be seen to take some action, but not enough action to annoy Mussolini. What an impossible situation for them. So publicly the British began to talk tough. Now this fella is known as Samuel Hoare, and he made an impassioned speech to the Assembly of the League, calling for collective resistance against Italian aggression. But it seemed to have little effect on Mussolini. Mussolini simply stuck his tongue out at the British Foreign Secretary, and in October 1935, despite all the tough talking of the British, the Italians invaded Abyssinia, and they did rather well very quickly. The Italians started to do extremely well, probably because they had things such as tanks and aircraft, whilst the Abyssinian army was mostly primitive, with outdated weaponry that was simply no match for tanks or aircraft. Haile Selassie, the Abyssinian emperor, appealed to the League of Nations for help. Now, despite all the tough talking of the British, the Italians had invaded anyway. Now the League had to take some action. The League imposed economic sanctions on Italy. None of the League's member states were to sell any rubber, any weapons or any iron to Italy, all of things which are very important for a war. However, they didn't ban the sale of oil to Italy. Oil would have been vital for Italy because they needed to transport their power across the sea to Africa to fight in Abyssinia, but the member states of the League of Nations thought that if they stopped selling Italy oil, Italy would just get their oil from the United States of America or other nations that were not part of the League. And that would mean the League of Nations, or any member states that were involved in the oil business, would lose out on any future oil deals with Italy. This again is another reason why the Americans not joining the League of Nations in the first place was vital to understanding why the League of Nations failed at all, because if they were part of the League of Nations, perhaps they would have banned oil sales to Italy and maybe the invasion could have been stopped. Italy fought the war against Abyssinia by transporting things from Italy down the Suez Canal and down here to fight Ethiopia. The thing is, Britain and France controlled the Suez Canal, but they didn't close it to Mussolini. And that goes back to them not wanting to irritate Mussolini and drive him to make an alliance with Hitler. They wanted to keep Mussolini sweet. But I'm sure you can see that if they had closed the Suez Canal, it would have been very difficult for Italy to fight a war all the way down in Ethiopia. So the League of Nations, led by Britain and France, appeared to be acting tough, talking tough, and did take some action. But the action they took was largely useless, as they didn't want to annoy Mussolini enough to make him ally with Hitler. Or in the case of the oil, they couldn't ban oil. It would have been a waste of time because Italy would have just bought it from America. The crisis didn't end there, and as you're about to see, Britain and France did something which could be seen as sort of treachery towards the League, and it really was the final nail in the coffin of the League of Nations, and shown that even the member states of the League of Nations didn't believe enough in it to act as it was set out.